First up, why me? Perfectly valid question. I've been in the industry for my entire career, over 21 years now. I came from EA, Activision, Rockstar, Scopely, console, mobile, all the above. Worked on a lot of big franchises like Transformers, Simpsons, etc. I had 10 #1 mobile games, 14 top 5 console games. So I've definitely been through it in the industry. Had a lot of fun doing it, a lot of late nights, as you guys know how that goes. And I decided to jump into the real money industry recently. I'm going to tell you why. So first, let's look at what the gambling industry currently is today. Right now, it's about a $350-some billion market. If you include online poker and daily fantasy sports, it's about $450 billion a year. So as you break it down into different areas, you can see through North America, Europe, land-based, lottery, social casino. It's a massive industry that dwarfs every other form of entertainment that's out there. The biggest problem that the gambling industry is facing is there's a complete lack of innovation. So when you look at slot machines, they've innovated in the way that things are displayed, in the sort of licenses like Bridesmaids and Ellen and certain things that totally don't appeal to me that go into slot machines, but they haven't really changed the gameplay, right? It's still just reels, and it's still this sort of gameplay of sitting there and hitting one button over and over and over again. So when you look at how that breaks down for demographics, you know, the slot machine market serves their primaries very well, which is 50 to 65-year-olds. It skews heavily female, not a terribly technically adept demo of the population. When you look at the top market of casino visitors today, there are people who grew up with video games, with consoles, there are people that live on their phones, do a lot of social media. And when you look at how it breaks down to the visitors, it's 21 to 49-year-olds are the #1 demographic that's visiting the casino. And if you look at that little graph there on the lower right, and you look at 21 to 34, that's the red sliver of people who actually play slot machines. So it's a very small amount in that group that's actually engaging in the #1 product that's on the floor. So this puts a huge risk in the classic casino market, and that's how a lot of revenue has been generated for casinos over the years. And basically what all of these graphs show is as you project forward in the future years, that problem only grows and grows and grows. It's becoming more of a problem. And as the current population ages out and the younger people are coming into casinos more and more, they're not magically turning 40 and suddenly developing an interest in slot machines, right? They grew up with a Super Nintendo or a PlayStation, so they still want some form of skill and interactivity and fun in their gaming. So when you look at how places like Las Vegas and even tribal casinos throughout the world have sort of tried to address this age problem, they've come up with new forms of entertainment, and they've become, as opposed to a gambling destination, they've become an entertainment destination. So things like Cirque du Soleil, you know, fancy nightclubs with DJ residencies, that pool party, which I'm pretty sure all those people got some kind of weird rash from, that's how they're appealing to that younger demographic. So when you look at 21 to 35-year-olds in the USA, 35% of those people are visiting casinos on a yearly basis. And of that group, they're only gambling about 2% of that group. So they're going for the entertainment, but they just don't have any interest in the gambling that appeals to them on the floor. That was myself as well. Barcades, on the other hand, with classic arcades, stuff like Street Fighter, Pinball, etc., those are growing in popularity around the world, especially with 21 to 45-year-olds. Places like Dave & Buster's, you know, arcade chains, they're actually opening about 4 new locations in the US each year. So they're actually growing. Now, obviously, it's a huge, massive market. In summary, we're looking at about $159 billion a year business just for land-based casinos globally. Now, you compare that to the mobile gaming market, it's $22 billion. Nevada alone gets about 42 million visitors per year through the doors of its casinos. Slot machine revenue has continued to go down as a trend for the last 8 or 9 years now, 12.5% from 2007 to 2015. So this is a problem that's continuing to grow. Now, casinos recognize this, and they are desperate for new content and revenue streams. However, they've had to adapt in the other forms of entertainment because the slot machine manufacturers have not innovated their product in ways that are actually interesting to the consumers. So one of the things that I really like about jumping into this market is that your user acquisition is already done, right? The casino is focused on user acquisition 24/7. So as opposed to when I was launching mobile games, I don't have to worry about the current, $6.50 CPI. Casino's already all over that. So what are the pitfalls of trying to make real money arcade games for a casino? There's quite a few. It's an unproven market. You don't know what type of skill games are actually going to make it. Is it going to be a driving game? Is it going to be a match 3 game? Is it going to be a fighting game? Is it going to be a shooter? It's a brand new market for this type of game, so nobody really knows right now. What companies will make it? Who knows? There's only a handful of us out there right now, and a lot of people are sort of watching us to see what company does the best. Do you think the slot machine companies will come around, right? IGT, Psy, these are massive billion-dollar companies that know what they're doing when it comes to slot machines, that have massive reach, that have billions of dollars. Gamblit, where I'm the chief marketing officer, we have 80 people. We don't have billions of dollars. We're sort of I would say, a well-funded startup in that sense. So it's hard to tell. There's major competition out there if they decide to play in the space. You have to get licensed for every territory that you launch product in. So those can be anywhere from 100,000 upwards of 7 figures to get fully licensed in each area. So it's not a cheap proposition. It's not like getting an iTunes license and launching something on the floor. So as the little kitty cat shows, that money is not quite as easy to get as you would think. So what about the content? There's a lot of issues that come from trying to make a game for a casino for a real money space. I came from 24-hour server-side updates, right, from the world of mobile gaming. Well, if you want to update something that's on a casino floor, it has to go through regulatory testing, it has to go through approvals, it has to go through a whole chain of stuff before it can actually get to the floor. That can take 4 or 5 months for something as simple as changing some levels or adding some art or doing any kind of simple adjustment to the game of any kind. Regulatory reviews are fairly painful. It's sort of like an Xbox TCR, PlayStation TRC process times 100. Again, anytime that you're dealing with someone's money and real physical cash going into a machine, there are so many more layers of trying to make sure that there aren't bugs there aren't loopholes, there's not some way to hack into it, etc. Regulated hardware is fairly limiting compared to what we're used to in the game development community. You have to have a specific machine that is approved to be a gambling device. You can't just grab any old PC off the shelf with a great NVIDIA card and throw it on the floor. I wish. Anything that's too kiddie could be just outright rejected because they don't want to have anything on the floor that appeals to a younger demographic. Every jurisdiction is different, so each area can give you a different set of regulations. Some areas may be fine with it, some areas maybe not. So one of the questions I get a lot is, if you have skill gaming on the floor, can you just, have someone who's amazing at the game come down there and sit and just make it rain and just get tons of cash off of your game? Well, absolutely. You have to cater to someone who's probably never played the game before, and you have to cater to someone that could have been playing the game for months and still give both of them a good experience and not let one person go and make a dramatically larger amount of money than the other one. So once again, that cash is a little bit harder to get than you might like. So what am I doing about it? How am I tackling all these various problems I just laid out with that big prize of a massive industry that's in desperate need of change? So at Gamblit, we're trying a bunch of different things. We have the Model G, which is a gaming table. It's all multiplayer, social, interactive games for 2 to 4 players. You stand around a table, you put in cash. You're typically playing some type of video game that lasts 60 to 90 seconds, trying to compete for the money that's on the machine. The Tri-Station there is where all of our single-player games go. A lot of our kind of hit mobile content that we're making gambling versions of goes onto there. We're trying G Sports, which I'll talk about a bit, which is sort of like a light esports implementation. We're jumping into VR. We have a VR platform that's pretty cool. And we're even redoing some of the felt tables. So the felt table genre is another one, like blackjack, that sort of thing that hasn't changed a lot in the last 50 or 60 years. One of the things that I'm doing is focusing a lot on partner content. So by partner content, that is taking hit games that I play, that other people play, that's been downloaded millions of times and featured in the app stores, and working with those developers to actually make a gambling version of that game. And I'll give you a couple examples here coming up. But I'm lucky enough to work with companies that I've been fans of for many years, like Pitfalls, which we're working with Into the Dead and Breakneck, Catapult King from Wicked Witch, Brookhaven from Phosphor, and Jetpack Joyride from Halfbrick. You know, a game like Jetpack Joyride has over 350 million downloads. So when I look at where I want to take the business and the type of content I want to put out there, I think as a gamer, if I walk onto a casino floor and I see Jetpack Joyride, and it's the Jetpack Joyride I've been playing on my phone for 5 years, it's more attractive to me because I know how to play that game, as opposed to some type of movie or TV license that's slapped on there with some type of new game that I've never played before. So one of the questions I get a lot from casinos is, what are you doing about esports? Esports is great. It's really fun to watch. I consider myself a hardcore gamer. I grew up playing video games since the age of 5. Now, I also know that there's no way that I'm going to be able to go onto a casino floor anywhere else and compete with a professional team of 18-year-old gamers that play League of Legends for 14 hours a day. Like, it's not going to happen. So we tried to come up with a way that we could give sort of an esports type feeling on the casino floor. And that's called G Sports. And basically what we do is we link those tri-stations together, a single player gaming device, and we have a timed fee-based tournament entry. Basically, imagine as you play a game like Road Redemption, which we're working with EQ Games on. You put 20 bucks in the machine, and you're competing for the top scores on the leaderboard, and you have, let's say, 4 hours. So for 4 hours, people are all competing nonstop in a single player, basically race. Let's say it's 3 minutes. And they're trying to get one of the top scores, because one of the top scores gets that cash pool that grows every time that people put money in. So it's a simple sort of way to take a game that's out on Steam, it's out on PS4, it's out on Xbox One. You get to know it well, play it at home, and then you get to sort of compete on the floor. So questions I get all the time, what do we think will work in a casino? Well, there's a new market. Skill gaming on the casino floor is brand new. No one's actually done much with it yet. So a lot of the things that we've done in the last several years of operating as a company and meeting with people, doing focus tests is, if it works in a 90s arcade, it will work on the casino floor. And by that I mean stuff that's easy to pick up, stuff that's fast to learn, easy to play, allows for quick rounds. Stuff that doesn't work, RPGs, anything that you have to have a consistent universe, anything that would need a login. Everything is more like put in 20 bucks, play for a bit, leave. Any type of persistent universe just doesn't really work in a sort of arcade setting. The other thing you have to keep in mind is your average customer is probably going to be 3 or 4 drinks in. So if they don't, aren't able to understand your game within the first minute or two of watching it, they're probably not going to be trusting enough to put 20 or 100 bucks into the machine and give it a shot. So here's a couple examples of what we've actually done. So we've been working with Wicked Witch on Catapult King, which I have been playing since it first came out. I love this game. On the left, you can see original screenshots of the game, and on the right, here is the Gamblified version. And basically, all that we've done, we've kept the original game the same, but we've added a gambling layer on top of it. So on the left, you can see there's a casino bar with how much you're going to be wagering, how much is in the bank, what your last win was. And the way that the game was gamblified is essentially every time that you pull back on that catapult and launch, you're trying to destroy knights. The more knights you destroy, the more money that you can win back. So it's pretty straightforward. Gameplay is the same, levels are the same, AI is the same. We didn't go and do a sweeping dramatic change. It's very much the original game. It's just every time that you launch a catapult, you're running a wager. With Into the Dead, we went out a sort of slightly different way of gamblifying. Every game is a very different experience, so we sort of approach the gamification of each game very differently. And with Into the Dead, you're giving a series of challenges at the start. So it could be kill 100 zombies, use the machine gun to kill 50, clear 2 cornfields, get 5 attack dogs. And for each challenge that you complete, you win back another cash reward. So again, gameplay very much the same. You're still running forward and shooting zombies, but you can win cash for it, which is kind of awesome. So basically, how I see this coming together is, in a perfect world, I want to bring arcades where I grew up, casinos where I, just personally, I've always gone, but never really found much to do outside of the club or outside of a show. and sort of bring those worlds together. So we, hopefully down the road we'll have stuff like Mario Kart with, a custom cool driving setup, games like Street Fighter, very competitive, and bring it all together, and then have Lakitu help us make it rain cash. All right, I will give my best Britney Spears confused face and answer any questions that you guys might have about this market.
Hi, great talk, thank you. I'm wondering if you think that these games that you're bringing to the casino floor would also work within a social casino context, and if you've thought about experimenting with them there before going through the expense of building a piece of hardware and putting it out on the floor.
Yeah, it's a great question, absolutely. So we do actually have a small mobile business in the UK where we are our own publisher. And we actually are just in testing right now with Catapult King. It's called Catapult King Real Money Fling. It's on the App Store in the UK. And you can go and play it now, and you can gamble on your device. It's been very interesting to get that type of data back because it's different than what we get in focus groups. It's different than what we, testing that we do. It's definitely helpful. That being said, we're fighting the fight of CPIs being just completely out of control. In the UK App Store, especially when you look at the cost of getting a real money depositing user and the cost of retaining them. And we look at the opportunity that's existent in land-based casinos around the world where, quite frankly, just, I think the rest of the manufacturers are behind consumer demand, and there's so much larger a market. So I think we'll continue to use mobile in addition to things like focus testing to get an idea of what consumers like, what they don't, what they're reacting to. The nice thing about taking stuff like, Catapult King and Into the Dead and Jetpack Joyride, and we have a bunch of other stuff we haven't announced yet, is that we know that people like those video games, right? There's a reason that 350 million people downloaded Jetpack Joyride. It's not a fluke. So I think by giving that content and sort of keeping the core of the game the same, it sort of hedges our bets that people will want that same experience when they're playing for real money.
Great. Thank you so much,
Cool.
Darion.
Thank you very much.